Terry sent me a thank you text, which I appreciate. You enjoyed staying here. Fine, right. I did appreciate it.
Talking
It's the only
about,
one I heard.
yeah,
Well,
stuff.
Great. Welcome back to Senate Education. Hey, Ms. Myers, thanks so much for joining us. We're trying to move some bills and we have not heard yet from all of you. I do see some testimony in our files. We just need to understand your thoughts on 304. So please go for it.
Great. Thank you for having me. For the record, Chelsea Myers, Associate Executive Director at the Vermont Superintendents Association. Thank you for inviting testimony on career and technical education in response to the study on the funding and governance of career technical education in Vermont, otherwise known as the APA report, and its anticipated legislative consideration. VSA held 2 stakeholder feedback meetings in late 2023. The group consisted of 11 superintendents, including 3 technical center superintendent directors, and representatives from the VPA and the VSBA. Several core themes emerged from the first meeting, including many recommendations outlined in the APA report relate more generally to topics in pre-K through 12 education and should not be discussed in isolation from the overall delivery system. Number 2, coordination and collaboration between entities to ensure equity, quality, and efficiency is essential. This includes with the higher education system. Number 3, there is a need for a system that does not create tension or competition between schools and instead focuses on flexibility and accessibility. Number 4, expansion requires additional attention to all of the barriers discussed throughout the APA report, including but not limited to facilities, transportation, and financial and human resources. And number 5, as a lever of economic growth in Vermont, any changes to career and technical education should be grounded in a clear vision, both statewide and in local communities. So for the sections 1 and 2 on funding, developing a non-competitive funding mechanism for CTE was a shared value expressed at the feedback session from all parties. VSA will await forthcoming information from the Agency of Education on their proposed block funding and transition mechanism. Given the significant pressures on the education fund, the details of any shifts in the funding structure will be tremendously important. They should be thoughtfully discussed and considered within the full context of the education delivery system. Any changes in funding should not leave school districts or CTE centers with fewer resources. Within changes to the funding mechanism, there needs to be an acknowledgement that the sending LEAs do still provide services for students who attend CTE programs. In Section 3, expanded access, as you learned from VACTED in their testimony on February 23rd, requiring an annual visit for all grades 6 through 8 students would be immensely challenging to coordinate and implement. While career exploration in earlier grades is important, there should be flexibility in how this can be accomplished in school districts and CTE centers, with recognition of current capacity limitations and workforce shortages. Adding opportunities to the middle grade should not detract from the day-to-day CTE program offered to secondary students. In regards to providing genuine opportunities for students in grades 9 and 10, it is unclear what genuine means in this context, especially within the context of reported wait lists for programs, staff shortages, and facility limitations. In Section 4 and 5, it talks about a comprehensive career development policy. VSA recommends hearing testimony from VSBA as it relates to school board policy. The bill's current draft does not clearly delineate the model policy and the implementation plan. Procedures are also mentioned further in the section, all different types of documents that guide school districts or frameworks. The model policy and implementation plan should be clearly articulated and align with the role of school board policy compared to the other guiding documents mentioned within the bill. School construction aid, VSA definitely agrees with this section within the context of the overall concerns about school construction aid for the public education system. Section 7, oversight. VSA did not discuss this recommendation in its feedback sessions. With that said, whichever entity is responsible for oversight should have the capacity to do so effectively and towards a shared vision of an effective public school delivery system. I believe in committee you talked a little bit about kind of the political implications of oversight in either group. Any oversight should be met with a commensurate level of support for the field from the AOE. VSA recognizes the need for an update to the rules. Regardless of the body undertaking an update to the rules, the process should include substantial collaboration with the field. Post-secondary program alignment. Superintendents in the feedback session recognize a need for better alignment between CTE centers and higher education institutions to the greatest extent possible. There were some reports that students pursue opportunities in other states instead of repeating coursework required by Vermont's post-secondary institutions. A seamless secondary to post-secondary to career pathway is critical for Vermont's economic future. Vermont must do what it can to both attract and retain a skilled workforce. Thank you.
Yeah, Senator Hewitt.
Hey, Chelsea, thanks for that testimony. I was just curious about section 3, which I think we've heard now multiple times that it's maybe a little bit problematic, but what do you recommend there in terms of the career exploration for middle school kids for 6 through 8? Do you guys have like proposed language or a suggestion on how we should handle it?
I think we would lean on what VACTED's recommendation would be at this time, which is to, if any language is included, to have it as flexible as possible. And I also do wonder if there's a policy, if you do move forward with the kind of the policy framework, if that could be addressed like in the implementation plan. Again, like I was a little bit confused with, it mentions a policy, a school board policy, as well as an implementation plan. And so if there is indeed both a school board policy and an implementation plan, if the kind of expansion into the middle grades could be a part of that implementation plan. I was a little confused with that section though, so I'm not sure if that would be a proper vehicle.
Thanks.
Yeah, that section 3, I agree that challenging to coordinate, implement all those visits might be something section 3 the House could work on for us if we wanted to pull it. And I think your point is well taken. Genuine opportunities, kind of a strange word, vague enough to
Yeah.
Pause. Yeah.
I think too, with the core principle that we discussed, that was in agreement with all of the superintendents that were on our feedback sessions, is that a non-competitive funding mechanism might help to address some of the access concerns as well. It's a big undertaking to shift that funding mechanism, but it was a shared value amongst the participants, both CTE directors, superintendents, and superintendents in more traditional LEAs.
Section 3.
Section 3, I think we might end up striking. And actually, I wonder if there's another big change that they suggested. Oh, I'll see if, I know Sue Siglowski, I think Kara Zimmerman works for Sue Siglowski. She's coming in tomorrow on something. So maybe we could ask Kara Zimmerman to also just testify on 304. And Chelsea, what I'm going to probably end up at, because there are so many moving parts, would you be willing, with your association be willing to work with the Agency of Education to just see if we can all get to a good spot where AOE is in agreement with all of you, School Board Association? I know you're just talking, I'm just asking you to speak on behalf of the superintendents, but it's getting to the point where it would be helpful if all of you had a conversation with AOE or some kind of meeting and saw where there might be some common ground in a bill that we could push out. And I know part of it's going to hinge on what Agency of Education says tomorrow around financing.
Yeah, you're talking about the whole bill, not necessarily a specific segment. Yes, we are open to collaboration. I can't speak to the other parties, but we'd be happy to connect.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Myers? So I think what, Ledge Council is gonna come down, we're gonna have a quick conversation with her about a couple of other bills, and then I'll probably just stick around, anybody who wants to stick around and go through this bill with her, happy to have you, but I'm just trying to tee up a few of our final pieces of work before the end of the week.
How are we gonna decide about the oversight piece in section 7? Because we've been getting sort of similar testimony to what Chelsea gave us, which is. It doesn't matter if it's the state board or the AOE, but as long as they update the rules, how do we make that decision?
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is a section that I'm thinking of. This is the one that moves away from the state board and gives it to the AOE.
Yeah,
It seemed to me to make sense to take it away from the state board, given capacity issues as, have the buck stop with the Agency of Education. What are you thinking, Senator Hewitt, in terms of, tell me a little bit more about your concerns or questions?
no, I mean, I'm fine with that. It just,
Yeah.
other than hearing from the secretary, no one's been really like
Pushing.
direct and saying like, this is what we should do. That's why I was wondering how we can make the decision, but. I'm fine with that. If the secretary thinks that that's what should happen and that they feel comfortable if they have the capacity, then why not?
Well, back to capacity,
Yeah.
What again are we going to do with that extra, if we're gonna be making recommendations for positions. This is a capacity issue. Checking on, following up on a number of things that we have asked them to do over the past 10 years. Some kind of person that, could be needed more in this role than maybe the library. We'll see. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to highlight that Friday we've got the state board coming in to testify. I think that could be enlightening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question is,
Yeah.
who, they have the responsibility now, right? State board?
This is, the state board has it right now.
So are they doing anything?
Well, one of the things we heard was that the career technical centers have been waiting on rules that they were gonna generate for 2 decades. So
So that's not good.
it's not good, yeah. And I'm not sure if, listen. 120 I lost sight of,
Yeah.
but for a month and a half. 20 years. Long time. I mean. I was just.
I mean, it would be helpful if we had your testimony, bottom line up front, we support this,
Yeah,
with the exception of,
yeah,
well, and we don't hear that. So I mean, we're asking for people to help us to
Yeah.
that policy. And
Yeah.
we haven't heard the bottom line up front.
yeah.
Maybe we can ask the secretary who is in the AOE specific to tech centers? Like how many actual employees or
Well,
tech
remember,
centers?
this does ask for a full-time position.
They have one.
They do, yes.
But
And
that
we
was in
did-
the governor's budget.
That's in the governor's recommend, correct?
Yeah.
But to add, so perhaps that's who might do
yeah.
that work.
Yeah, okay.
And I think Ms. St. James is gonna add that position into this.
I put up the policy sheets 4 and 5. Did you guys?
So I think, so that goes back to the conversation I think we were just having, correct?
I was thinking more of 3, section 3, 4 and 5. Oh, model comprehensive career program.
Yeah, we're gonna hear from them tomorrow. That's- Anything else from you, Ms. Myers? I think what it's gonna warrant in the end, possibly maybe a conversation between, after we hear what the AOE puts forward tomorrow, recommendations around financing. I might ask that all of you have a conversation in the cafeteria about how best to work through any difficulties or disagreements and get us to a point where we can move this over to the House.
Yes, I'd be happy to. And Kara is off today, but I can try to connect with her in the morning and see if we can come up with some language that maybe clears up that kind of the distinction between the policy implementation and also procedures are mentioned in that section. So it does read a little confusing. So if it's the will of the committee, I'd be happy to try to flesh out some language that might make it clearer.
That would be a huge help. And is the secretary in tomorrow? She herself coming in for this? I think so.
That's.
Or are they meeting tomorrow and then sharing it with us? She's not, okay. All right, yeah, so I guess Beth will come in, we'll have Beth come in and take us through their recommendations. Would you email the secretary and ask her, actually, you and I can talk about this after we're done. Thank you. I mean, we still have a little ways to go on this, but having your recommendations are helpful. And while we have you, just so you know, we're getting close to voting both of our literacy bills. Library, if there's anything else that's important to you on those, you could let us know. And I know we're gonna likely move Senator Williams' technology bill and Senator Hashim's New American Grant bill. So anything like that you could just sort of take a look at, those are all nearing completion.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Great, thank you. Okay, why don't we go off and wait for Beth?